going on there, YouTube? Back again on the number 3 rat rod build. This episode I'm going to look at front suspension, at least hanging the front axle out. Not sure yet on any of it, front or back, how I'm going to do the shocks. I've been daydreaming some ideas, but not ready to fab anything up just yet. So just going to look at getting it lined up, getting it centered, getting it straight, and getting it on there. I did order some more RC four-wheel drive rod ends. Got some offset rod ends and some angled ones and stuff like that. You can see back there by the body, I do have an R4 transmission. I went ahead, I was going to use my R2, but after starting to look at interior, I think this one should be like the number 1 build and have the transmission exposed inside. I think that'll add to the realism of the interior. Since we're not going to have any detailed engine bay, figured I ought to go all out on the interior. So let me bring you around the side here and show you what I've got so far. Alright, so back in the beginning I had some holes drilled already perfectly aligned on both sides of the rail, and I'm going to try to utilize those. I've got some 70mm RC four-wheel drive link rods, and I've used some of these offset longer rod ends. It's getting pretty close to where I need it to be on the front here. Not 100% sure yet. I've got to mock it up, put some bolts through there, and just see where we're looking at. See if I need to move it further out, further back. So see what all we need to do. I'm just guesstimating the ride height right now. I've got these old lug wrenches holding the frame up. Still has a little bit of a rake toward the front. And again, the body's still not attached to the frame, and I haven't come up with a good way to do that just yet. So I think, yeah, I don't know. Lots of little things to take into consideration, but I'm going to go ahead and try to mock this up and get it all square, and we'll see what we're looking at as far as suspension travel. Alright guys, so I've been playing with rod links and got it looking pretty good. Got it straight. I think before I go any further, I'm going to have to get the body mounted to the frame. So, because right now the frame move inside the body, so I can't get a good idea of where I need to cut, if I need to open it up anymore, stuff like that. So, obviously I'm going to have to cut more on one side or the other to connect the steering links. I'm having some other ideas about that, so probably won't get to that in this video, but for now I'm going to go ahead and figure out a way to mount the body. I think I'm going to use, well, before we get into that, let me show you the suspension. It's nothing fancy. We've got our standard radius arms. You can see the other side there. They are 73s, I think, or 70mm with 2 spacers, 1 on each end, and then the long offset rod end. And I did put some spacers on the frame back there to kind of pry them out, and that helps stiffen it up so we don't really get a whole lot of side-to-side travel. We're getting it all from the rear. And the same thing we did with the number 1 build. It had a single link like that for the radius arm. And once we got suspension on it, got it weighted down with electronics and everything, it actually provided a little bit of flex. It was like a real nice stiff suspension with a sway bar. So I'm hoping to get the same effect out of this. It will give a little bit, but not a whole lot. And this is going to be pretty much an on-road car anyway, so I'm not worried about flex. So what I'm thinking here for the body mounts, since I have a little bit of hood that sticks past the front of the frame, I'm going to make a just little sheet metal tabs that come out of the frame rail, and I can screw the body in with some scale hardware right there in the front, and then we'll figure out a creative way to mount the grill over that so that it makes removing the body not quite so difficult. Again, I still don't know about suspension. I could easily just throw some shocks right here. I was mocking up the transmission, and with the motor it's still going to come pretty far forward, so I don't know space-wise if I'll have any room for some crazy cantilever setup. I still don't know what kind of shock I'm going to use, so that's still all up in the air, but I'm going to go ahead and look at mounting the body. Alright guys, so I've got some little sheet metal tabs. I mounted it inside the front frame rail sticking out. And I got my holes pretty dang straight for just eyeballing. I'm running out of scale hardware, so I'm having to go back to the standard RC four-wheel drive stuff. But I just got the bolts through right now. I don't have nuts on it because I do want to work on the back now. The rear one, you can see the front one, you can see in there, it's just a little tab, and it bolts behind this cross member. Got one on each side with the bolt coming through. The rear one is going to be a little different. It's going to go through like that, and this part's going to be inside the rail between the cross member, the tube, and the rail. And then I've got to figure out some way to attach it to the back where I can get a nut and a bolt on it. There's one little problem with that. Get you inside there to take a look. Everything will be parallel with this bar, so I can't just run bolts through and tighten it from the back. Well, wait a minute, I just had another idea. Instead of doing this janky sheet metal stuff, if I can find another one of those cross members from the Trail Finder 2, it's a tube with the holes in it, then I can just drill some holes on the body accordingly, and they can thread right into the tube. And that would save me a little bit more work. And I have one up here on this Trail Finder 2, so I'm going to swap those out, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, there's the body mounted. I'll flip it over here in a second so you can see a little bit better what's going on. Everything's jiving pretty good so far. There's a few little issues. My chassis is pretty close leveled with the bottom of the body. It sticks down just a little bit, which is fine, because that's where the way it sits now is with the suspension all the way bottomed out. So once we get a little bit of suspension travel on it, it'll be up a little bit higher, and everything will be all right. There was some wonky bits here at the front end. I can't tell. The axle is centered, but I think the hood's crooked. And I think I did that when I was drying the paint. I warped the body a little bit on the driver's door. I picked it up and realized it was soft and flexible, and I got it as straight as I could, but when I went to glue the hood to the main body, I had to do a little work on this to get it to line up with the hood. So I think I'm having some issues up front now with my openings as far as where the suspension sticks out. It looks like, I mean, it's centered now with the axle. I've been tweaking the suspension and getting it straight, but my openings are off just a little bit. So I think that's strictly body, because once I had the frame off and was looking at everything, it looks pretty good. Everything measures out within reason. It's not perfectly square, but square enough. But yeah, just a caution to you if you're using heat to help dry your paints on these 3D printed bodies. Don't let it get too hot. I had mine sitting right in front of the heater. I didn't think anything about it. I did that before with the number 2, but that's a different material. That's white flexible nylon stuff from Shapeways, and this I think it's PLA. I'm not 100% sure what material this was printed from. So yeah, just use caution. I've got it all sorted out. The body's mounted. Everything works. I've got a little bit of snug spot back here behind on the body where the suspension comes up in the body, but I can trim that a little bit. I don't think it's really going to be a problem. I might not even have to cut clearance the body. I think I can just get in there with a Dremel, the sanding wheel, and just widen it out just a hair and give it a little bit more room for the travel. So let me flip it over here. Alright, having a hard time getting the camera to focus. That shiny front axle is drawing away from the lighting for the dark stuff. So everything's in there. Like I said, straight enough. My body mounts with 2 screws here, and then in the back, oh, come on, we've got 2 screws through the RC four-wheel drive fuel tank mount cross member I've swapped out on the rear. But I really wish I knew what I was going to do for suspension. I'd like to get this thing a true roller. Right now it does roll, but it's not a true roller to me until it's got suspension on it. But I still don't have the mount for the R4 transmission. It's going to be round about here somewhere. I've got a little bit of, I've used these mounts before. It's the mounting plate with the bracket, so there's no scale motor on there. And it's not too hard to work with. I can flip the mounts around different ways. I'm thinking I can flip them up and come into the step here, part of the chassis. So I think that'll be pretty easy to do. It's going to be around about there. It's going to make for another short little drive shaft, but oh well. So I'm hoping a can motor, and then I'll have this room here about 1 inch to do suspension. And this does flex a little bit, not much. Ideally, I would have done the links a little shorter and a little higher, done them back here, but I know that's where my transmission's going to mount, so I went ahead and opted for these holes because I made these holes when the chassis was still one piece. So they're even from side to side. So it saved me some trouble of having to try to measure and get things aligned. But makes for a cool movement, and that way they're pretty parallel with the bottom of the hood at that height, which is probably going to be close to ride height. Give me about a 1/4 inch travel, which is what I'm looking at in the rear as well. So, yep, let's see what's next. Alright guys, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I was doing some brainstorming about the suspension, and I'm still not set with the front how it is. I might make some changes, but I just can't for the life of me figure out what I want to do just yet. So, I was looking at some shocks. I don't have anything short enough to just do a standard shock setup and still fit under the hood. So, I don't know. Things are ever evolving. We'll just figure it out as we go. Let me flip it around here and show you the back. I can pick it up. So nothing special back there, just 2 screws in the back wall. Maybe we could find some license plate or something ratty to throw back there. Go with the theme, but for right now, that's where we're going to end this one. So appreciate everybody watching, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you all in the next video.